What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. We have the Toronto expanded format meta forecast for you today. Toronto is March 10th, I believe, and it is the expanded format, the first expanded tournament with Team Up in it, and the first expanded format event since the banning of Lucamine and Delinquent. I have some great guests here with me today, and they're going to introduce themselves. We'll go Will, Rukan, Charlie, Otto.
Hey guys, I'm Will Jenkins. I've day two'd like 3 regionals or something. Kind of just go in and out of placements. I'm from Maryland, and yeah, that's about it.
Cool.
Hey, I'm Rukan. Right for Poke Beach. I've done day 2 at a few regionals this quarter and last year, but I play Malamar. That's what people know me for.
Cool.
All right. Hey guys, I'm Charlie Lockyer. I'm from Maryland. I'm sitting at 264 championship points right now, but I haven't played in a tournament since December or a regional since Roanoke, where I went 9-0 and top 8'd. So we're hoping we can get something similar to that.
Yeah, that's the dream.
What's up, guys? I'm Otto. Also day 2 to a couple regionals. Going to Toronto, so hopefully trying to get some good testing in before the regionals.
Cool. And I believe myself and Rukan are the only ones here not going to Toronto. Is that correct? Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. All right, so I want to start out with establishing what you guys are testing against and what your mindset is kind of for this expanded format. So we'll start with Will. What are the 3 most important decks to test against right now?
I'd say the 3 most important decks is very clearly Pikarom, Archie's Blastoise, and Zorro.
Cool. Rukan?
Those are definitely my top 3, but I feel like this is one regional where you need to probably expand a bit more than 3.
Cool. Charlie, same 3?
Yeah, I agree with that. I'd test against some fighting stuff too, which should be probably Buzzwole's the biggest one to test against. Like, Buzzwole can definitely adapt to deal with things like Zorro and Psychic Attackers, so I'd test against that too. Word.
And Otto?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think those 3 are the biggest, but I think fighting is probably a close 4th.
Cool. And we'll go backwards in order this time. What deck do you think will be the most popular deck in day 1? And will this convert into being the most popular deck that makes day 2?
I think Pikarom will be the most popular deck in day 1, and I think its conversion rate will be pretty good. I think it will still be the most popular in day 2.
Cool. Charlie, same question.
I think Zorro will be the most popular deck in day 1, mostly because all the Pikarom cards are expensive, and some of the ones that are necessary are old, and not everyone, like, I don't even own them, even though I want to play the deck. And I think the conversion rate for Zorro will be pretty good. It's always been a really good deck, and it's still strong and can beat anything.
Cool. Rukan?
So I think if you're allowed to lump all the fighting archetypes, minus like the Wobbuffet ones, like
yeah, that's
if
fine.
you were to lump Buzzwole, Garbodor, and Lucario together, I think that is going to be by far the biggest share. I think that'll total about 20%. But I think Zorgarb's probably about 10%. Pikarom and Archie's probably slightly less than 10% each.
Cool. And do you think fighting decks will have the biggest day 2 share as well?
No.
Okay.
No.
Cool. And Will?
I'm not entirely sure where to put like a central best deck, or sorry, most played deck because of how low the attendance numbers are looking. But if I were to put my guesses, I would say Zorro. It's really good at beating fringe stuff, so if people bring weird concepts, you can like just coast through day 1 into day 2. But as for its conversion rate, I think it has to do too many things to beat some of the top decks, and it might just fizzle out. But at the same time, it could take up a large share of top 8 just based on how good the deck is.
Cool. Sounds good. So yeah, we said this in our last meta discussion on the channel that you have to remember you're not just playing against the tier 1 decks at a regional. You don't need an invite to get to a regional. Some people are local, so they're not traveling far, not taking it too seriously. You can play against anything, especially in the first couple rounds. And having a deck like Zorro or Pikarom that can just dish out large numbers and beat random crap sometimes is very important.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, we'll go starting with the Will and then circle back around in the order. Is there a deck you are comfortable calling the best deck in format?
Yeah, I'd say Pikazek when it sets up is probably the best deck in format. And then very close to it, Zorro. It just is. It does so much damage so quickly when it sets up, and you can kind of just steamroll anything.
Cool. Ruken?
I think I would probably call Zorro the best deck in the format just because of how well-rounded it is. I know that Picrom can hit really, really hard, but I think its fragile prize race is a big problem for its overall power level. I'm not comfortable calling that BDIF, even if the meta's like good for it and there's not too much fighting.
Sounds good. Charlie?
I think a properly built Pikarom with like a lot of like they can win fast. That's I think the biggest hallmark of Pikarom is winning fast. Is easily the best deck in format. Like you don't like I play cards to try to just win as fast as possible. It only loses to one prize decks at that point. But otherwise, Mars Shadow Cheese is still a thing, regardless of the Delinquent and Leucemine ban. That's still going to happen. So it's really hard to call best deck in the format when some Mars Shadow deck could easily win the tournament.
Cool. Yeah, you got to think about the variance of the disruption and whatnot. Otto?
Yeah, I think Pikarom is the best deck in the format. I think it's the sackiest deck, and I think that's like something to take in consideration because the other decks like need a little bit more finessing, and I think people who are just comfortable with Pikarom but may not be comfortable with the other decks can just win their ways, win enough games to kind of get into day 2 or be successful with it.
Yeah, with Pikarom, you definitely have a marginally lower amount of decisions, for most turns at least, than compared to something like Zorro Exodia, where you have like a lot of very important decisions, even like off of your first turn with the Ultra Ball away for your Lele. Would anyone disagree with that? That Pikarom's a lot less decision-based throughout the game? Okay, cool. Alright, we'll start with Otto again on this one. Name a deck that could translate well from the current standard format to the new expanded format. And we'll try to name 4 different decks if possible. So
right.
1 each.
I mean, Pikarom, that's like the reason why I was thinking it would be the most popular, is I think it's like the most accessible for people who are already playing standard to kind of hop in expanded and play a deck that runs very similarly. So.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Would you mind breaking down a few things that go into Pikarom in the expanded format that aren't available to us in standard? Just like 2 or 3 cards.
Yeah, I think we're obviously picking through A-Specs, and then you have Max Elixir, which is huge as your energy acceleration, so that really gets the ball going. Yeah.
What was that?
I just agree with him.
Oh, okay, cool.
The only other card I have on my list that a lot of people don't is Scramble Switch. I found it to be insane.
Yeah, Scramble Switch is...
Yeah, it's hard to decide if you want Scramble Switch for the utility or Computer Search for the added consistency, because like we were saying, we want to try to just win fast, and extra consistency gets you there, but Scramble Switch also helps with that. Charlie, same question. A deck that could translate well from current standard to new expanded.
Well, it's hard if I can't answer Pikarom because I haven't watched that much standard or played standard since December, but I can definitely say I watched a little bit of Oceania, and the 1 prize deck with Jirachis I think can translate, but I don't think it'll translate with Zapdos. Or there will be Zapdos maybe present, but I don't think it'll be the focus, because it'll gain things like, yeah, you can play them because you can play Prism Energy and other energies like that. The Blend Energy works with fighting and Buzzwole and stuff like that, but otherwise I think Buzzwole Jirachi maybe, something of the sorts that can stay 1 prize and knock out Pikaroms and Zoroarks, which, like, that only Buzzwole decks can do that.
Cool. Ruken?
This is a tough question. There's too many archetypes, but Kika played like Buzzwole Lucario, so I guess you could.
Oh yeah.
That kind of translates to like Lucario GX and expanded. You could counter some Pikaroms and all that.
Yeah, actually very similar, because Kika played 3 Acerola, and then in expanded you have Versus Seeker, so you just play 1 or 2 Acerola and a handful of Versus Seeker. Will, we took a lot of options away if you have one.
Good. Pikazek was said, so that's the clear choice, but Zoroark is good and expanded, so you could play Zoroark. Some key cards that you get would be Execute, Dowsing Skyfield, because now your Zoroark is also a very heavy hitter. Having Fighting type is good with Pikazek, and then you could also play the new Lycanroc to discard those pesky flash energies if you wanted. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The new Lycanroc is a great idea for Zoroark to get rid of flash energy.
One question, Will. Would you play Lucarios?
No.
Because I was testing Zoroark Lucario a bit also. I thought it was, just like without Lycanroc, I thought it was solid. Because you can get one prize kills on Pikaroms and Zoroarks.
Would you play the new Lycanroc to get rid of flash energies and stuff?
Yeah, I think team up Lycanroc's pretty good too.
I think it's solid. I mean, I don't even play Flash Energy in Pikarom, so...
Okay.
Wild.
Yeah, this man is living on the edge. Okay, so next, my next question on the list is actually just about Pikarom. So, is Pikarom best built entirely around the card Pikarom with minimal techs, or do you think a techier version is better? What are some of your ideas for the deck that you haven't exactly seen being talked about, or out of the variants and versions you've seen online? What do you like the best? I believe we're back to starting with Will.
Okay. I haven't looked at a ton of online versions, just kind of went off what I thought was good. As for some weird text, Silent Lab could be very good against Wailord. I'm not sure if that's in list at the moment, but Mew Fates Collide 2 to give yourself a one prize attacker. You can do the same thing as Pikarom, full blitz your energies and whatnot. And
Fates Collide.
Yeah, Silent Lab is actually, I'm seeing that in a few lists because of Mr. Mime. Because Mr. Mime's being tech not only for Wailord, but now for Pikarom as well, so it's kind of, you get even more value out of it in theory. So the Silent Lab's also been popping into Pikarom. Rukan, what are your thoughts about Pikarom and how to build it?
So I haven't play tested any techie lists beyond like Silent Lab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my just general feeling is I don't like Pikarom. Just straight Pikarom lists, they just don't get there in my opinion. I think you need some extra juice, but I don't know if the deck's still going to be consistent if you run that. I think you need at least a Coco GX. Sometimes I feel like I would love to have a Zapdos, but once again, I haven't tested the list. Maybe I'm just like, those all sound nice on paper, but don't quite get you there in terms of actually playing out practically.
Yeah, personally.
But,
Oh, go ahead.
I don't think that the base Pikarom, just straight Pikarom lists are good enough. It's either they're both bad, or the toolbox one is good and the regular Pikarom one is not that bad.
Okay. So I actually haven't played a list that didn't have Taboo Coco GX. So before we started this discussion, I had just learned that some people are playing it without Taboo Coco GX. Personally, I don't advise that, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I tested with and without.
Okay.
I didn't really use Coco that much, but my list is built differently.
Okay. Did you use it against Blastoise or no?
I had as an option against Blastoise, but I didn't really need it because my goal was like just hit ridiculously hard with don't even kill the Wailord beyond 2 turns and like try to cheese them and knock out Blastoise.
Okay.
With the snipe and do enough damage to kill it the next turn because then they can't Ace a Roller or anything on the Blastoise. They can't Ace a Roller and Archie's in the same turn.
Right. Okay. Otto, Pikarom?
Yeah, I've been playing a pretty straightforward list. The tech that I've been trying out is Marshadow GX. I like having a 5 prize game instead of a 6 prize game. Kind of forces them to take an extra knockout if they have to. It's like been okay. I haven't been too successful with it, but it's something to think about.
Okay. Computer search or scramble switch in Pikarom will go around. Will?
Computer search. I like just consistency. Can help you find Thunder Mountain if you can like kind of retreat your active but only get 2 energies. With such an aggressive deck, I like the ability to just be consistent.
Ruken?
I've liked Scramble Switch thus far. I see the reasoning for like computer search, but Scramble Switch does some pretty crazy plays sometimes, and sometimes when you fall behind as Pikarom, you need something crazy to come back, right? And I don't think Pikrom's consistent enough where I'd be comfortable just saying I'm just always going to get ahead.
Right. Charlie?
Scramble Switch all the way. It's not close. And the reason why is because my list already draws enough cards. I play 4 Shamans, unlike most people. And the goal is just get all the energies in one turn, and then it's just knockout, knockout, knockout. And with Scramble Switch, you like being able to switch all those energies to something makes it that much more often that you pull off the turn 1 Full Blitz and the T2. And then you can also split the energies between 2 Pika ROMs to stay safe, and then also Scramble Switch and get the T2 Tag Bolt off in like every game.
Okay, so cool. I like your insight. I've tried 2 and 3 Shaman counts, but I haven't gone to 4 yet. Would you suggest that players, if they want to try Scramble Switch, that they drop down 1 regular energy switch since they're playing Scramble?
Okay. I'm still playing 4 energy switch.
Okay.
The whole goal of my list is to win. Like, my list is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
The other things I didn't mention before is I'm also playing Captivating Pokepuff and all sorts of other tricks. The goal is just you can get the Lele's down 2 Mars Shadows, just completely screw them over, and snipe win in 2 turns every game. And I've actually been really consistent at hitting that.
Okay.
And Scramble helps a lot with that.
Charlie is playing the Turbo Pika ROM list that you need to watch out for in Toronto this weekend. Otto, Scramble Switch or Computer Search, or another ace spec if there's another ace spec you like.
No, I'm on the Scramble Switch train. I played Computer Search. It was fine. I feel like the one-of card in your deck that you're like trying to search for is probably the Thunder Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, but I think like the Thunder Mountain is probably trying to get you to Tag Bolt as early as possible. But I think the Scramble Switch is out of that.
Okay, cool.
And just to add, I also think that Scramble Switch and Computer Search are both very good options. But it's kind of up to preference.
Yeah.
Not to discredit one or the other.
Yeah, I'm on your side.
Yeah, I like the consistency Computer Search offers too.
Okay, so let's get into the Zoroark decks that are not Zorro Garb. Would anyone like to touch on Zororock and its viability or lack thereof in the new expanded?
Yeah, you lose out on like Zorogarb's advantage over Archie's Stoice if you switch to Lycanroc.
Yeah.
I'm not really okay with that.
Okay, so does anyone like Zororock?
I'd rather play Zorro Lucario because I don't want to have to deal with getting out energies and Lycanroc to take my KOs, and having a GX attack is the only option. GX attack counter gain is the only option for 1 energy attack, and I don't like that.
Right, okay, yeah. Okay, so Zororock is probably not the Zoroark variant to play, and if you want to play fighting Lucario, then?
I'd rather, yeah.
Cool.
I think you have to play like counter gains in the Zorro Rock if you want to do it. I think that muddies the deck up a lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It doesn't sound very nice. Zorro Pod. So Dean Nizam played Zorro Pod and won Dallas, and I think Zorro Pod and Russell Lepar also top 8'd with it. I think it was a great call for the meta that was created by all of the Zorro Toad decks and the Archie's popularity, but I don't think it's good at all in a Pika ROM and aggro meta. Does anyone disagree? Does anyone think Zorro Pod's good?
I think it will get annihilated by Pika ROM every single game.
Yeah.
When you actually look
just
at
too
this,
defensive.
Like, there's nothing you can play to get out to win.
Mm-hmm. Go
when
ahead,
you look at
Rifkin.
the stats from Dallas,
Mhm.
it didn't actually do that well against Archie Stoice either. Not in day 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like okay,
Okay.
but it wasn't like an auto win by any means. It was like 50-50.
Cool.
Like just play Zorogarb.
Yeah. Okay, so Zoroark Seismitoad, we haven't talked about it. In succession, it got first, and second at the 3 most recent expanded regionals, but Lusamine is now banned in the expanded format. Is Zoroark Seismitoad still a deck? Otto.
I don't know. I played around with it. It doesn't feel the same. I don't think you can. You have to like play like aggressive with the Oranguru and trap something up and spend your turn shuffling things back in. But then you're not quaking punching, and I think that it's just. I don't think it can hold Pika ROM in place. So.
Okay, I'm actually going to ask you another question, and then we'll go to Charlie. Is Lusamine the problem? Is Lusamine being banned the bigger problem, or is Pika ROM being a deck the bigger problem? For Zoroark Toad or Zoroark Control.
I think, yeah, it's probably Pikarom being bigger that's the problem there, because they have the free retreat with the Zero Aura, so you can't like trap something up active while you shuffle things back in with the Ranguru.
Mm-hmm. Because at that point you'd need like a Alolan Muck and Counter Catcher and Seismitoad, and yeah, that just sounds like a lot too.
It's like too much, yeah.
You're gonna lose.
ahead,
Gonna
Charlie.
take 6 prizes before you set it up.
Yeah, they probably tag bolted you already.
Yeah. So Charlie, I'll ask you the same question. Do you think Lusamine, in a format without Pikarom, would the Lusamine make it not viable? Will we still be playing Zorro?
Oh no, we'd still be playing Control. I'd
Okay.
probably play Control in a format without Lusamine. I think it's fine. I mean, but also more so, the best reason why is because Archie's would have cut Keldeo by now,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't care about not having the Stadium Recovery, all that stuff. I still have a Ranguru, and like it just feels more and more like the world's control deck without puzzles, which still works, or the standard control deck, which worked before. And in general, yeah, I'd like the deck, but have fun dealing with the Pikarom deck that plays 12 energies, has free retreat, and full voltage GX as an option.
Yeah, I agree. Does anyone disagree, Rukan or Will?
I don't know enough about the deck.
Okay.
So with Control, I kind of fell in love with it after I played in Dallas. I played the more Isaiah Williams traditional like red card delinquent, and unfortunately both Control decks kind of got their losses. The Toad deck lost Lusamine, and the other version lost Delinquent.
Oh yeah, I
And
forgot about that.
I would say that both of them or both Lusamine being banned and Pikarom being in the format are a problem, because with the Toad deck, the main thing you lose with the Lusamine is not only infinite loops and stuff, but you just lose the infinite like lock. You could, catch your Blastoise and then just kind of hit it and keep resourcing the supporters without using a Ranguru, and you could Plumeria energies every turn, and like it kind of prevented the whole Archon strategy and whatnot. So I think Lusamine is a big hit for Zorotoad, but I think it still beats a lot of the things. And then the Pikarom comes in, and it's like you need all this stuff to do, and it's going to take you forever to set up. So by the time you get it, I've already won. And the other deck, like Delinquent, was the whole strategy, so that deck's kind of dead.
Yeah. And the other deck Will is referring to, it would be Zorro Exodia, it was being called, or Zorro Hand Control.
Yeah.
With the Mars Shadows red card, Peaking red card, Delinquent.
No, more like the Trick Shovel.
Oh,
red card
okay.
Yeah,
Delinquent.
they're slightly different. Exodia
Yeah.
and the Hand Control are slightly different.
Oh, okay.
Exodia
speak on that
cheeses
real
your
quick.
opponent turn 1.
Okay, so Exodia cheeses your opponent with the red card Delinquent, Peaking red card to put them to one useless card.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Hand
and what
Control
is...
box takes your hand away and then controls your top decks.
Okay, and so what is the other one?
You slowly whittle down your opponent's board, and then in that process of doing so, you red card Delinquent them until you can stick them with dead cards. Then you control their top deck, all while using a Ranguru to loop the same strategy. Where Exodia, you kind of just, do you have anything turn 1? No? Okay, Riot Speeding.
Okay,
So
cool.
that's about
cool.
it.
Yeah, I didn't realize there were two different versions for the deck.
No.
But that's good to know. And both of them are gone now because Delinquent is gone.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, so Drampa Garbodor, but we can also talk about any Garbodor, Garbotoxin, or Trashalanche decks that you're interested in, other than Zorro Garb. So, Will, Drampa Garb or any other Garb variants, what do you think about them? Are there any that stick out to you?
Both Garbodors are some of my favorite cards that have ever been printed. I really like Trashalanche. The problem with Drampa Garb in my eyes is I think you can beat Wailord, and I think you can beat Zorogarb. But with Pikarom, the whole strategy is kind of locking your opponent out of the game and then Trashalanching for a bunch of damage. Well, when you Righteous Edge a Pikarom for 20, and they smack you with Full Blitz for knockout, and they can play very defensively, your Trashalanche doesn't do a lot. Against Zorogarb, you can parallel Righteous Edge end them, and then continuously do it until they can't do anything. So that's pretty good. And then Garbodor and the other Garbodor, so both Garbodors are pretty good against Wailord. And then like Buzz Shrine variants, they're okay. Their 1 prizes are pretty good against Pikarom. So I think that's Garbodor.
Cool. Rukan, thoughts on Garbodor?
I don't like Drampa Garbodor, but it always seems to do well. I've been looking a lot at the matchup stats. I went like 50-50 against Archistoy, so even with like they tech like Sigilif and like Mime, and then they still went 50-50. So I'm not even sure I could even say it has a good Archistoy matchup. But yeah, the Pikarom matchups definitely. They just go Max Luxor once, attach, and then checkmate. There's almost nothing you can do.
So I've been testing Garb with extra Wobbuffet, and also I'm trying fighting attackers, just one. So either Zygarde GX, because you're already running 4 DCE, or Landorus EX, and just switch your Rainbow and Psychic Energy counts around. So your plan is turn 1, you either start Wob or float into a Wob, and then turn 2, you establish the Garbotoxin, and so you can switch into a fighting attacker. Because the problem in testing was, if you started Wob, okay, good, you slowed down Pikarom a bit, they just have their max elixirs, but then your option is either Trash Avalanche for 60 or Righteous Edge for 20. So, like, you kind of have to change the deck around a bit.
Wait, so you play, like, one fighting attacker?
Yeah, like Landorus EX or Zygarde GX.
Because what I was going to say is, even under, like, a ridiculous lock, they can still get 3 energies out, and they can... With 3 energies, or even 2 in a Thunder Mountain, they can still tag bolt for 200 and no bonus effect and kill you. Which is, like, they're still going to kill you, and then they just need 1 Electro Power per thing, and they're taking 2 prizes every time.
Yeah, that is definitely true. It can happen. I'm trying to get the matchup to something even slightly favorable, and trying all the stops. So Charlie, we'll go to you. Garb or other Garb decks?
I think if a Garb deck succeeds, it's a 1 prize only Garb deck. Like... Baby Buzz Garb, something like that.
Okay. Could
actually be good because at least my list for Pikarom, I don't know much about the other ones, does not beat decks. Does not have a good time, or as good a time against decks that it has to like play the game for more than 4 turns.
Yeah, 4 turns is pretty much where you want to stop a Pikarom.
If you're playing beyond that, like you're deck out risk, you might be out of energy, out of resources, anything. You're running low on stuff, and even though you can skip Sledgehammer and stuff, which is nice, you're probably already at a high item count and they're hitting you hard, and they get 3 attacks to match your 1.
Sounds good. Otto, I think you were mentioning something about 1 prize decks earlier. What do you think about Garb?
Yeah, Garb, it's like, I don't know. It's, like Rukan said, I actually didn't think it had a good Stories, like a favorable Stories matchup. And it's like Zoroark matchup was its like saving grace. I think versus Pikarom, you gotta like Sigilif them. Like you force the Sigilif and try and get the GX attack off. It's like so iffy. I'm not a big fan of it. Like Charlie said, I think one prize Garbodor decks are probably the way to go.
Yeah, so Sigilif is actually really bad against Pikarom because so the ability only works in the active and it has 170 HP, so they can just tag bolt it. Because I originally I took Blaine Hill's list from Dallas, and I left 1 Sigilif in, and my first game against Pikarom, I had Sigilif in my hand, read the card, and scooped, and took it out.
What is kind of cute about the
Sigilif? It's the one that it has, like, the mirror ability or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the GX attack is like the KOable attack versus Pikarom, but...
Yeah, but you still need 2 energy attachments, which is bad.
I think it was supposed to be like the Wailord tech or something.
Yeah. Go ahead, Will. What were you saying?
I just wanted to double check this real quick.
Yeah, what's the GX attack do?
60 times the number of energy on the opponent's active.
Okay.
So if I'm correct, what's kind of cool about the ability is Sigilif is weak to lightning, so if they were the full blitz the Sigilif, they would kill themselves.
Okay. Can you read the ability?
Yeah, so mirror counter, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon and is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon GX or EX, even if it's knocked out, put damage counters on the attacking Pokemon equal to the damage done to this Pokemon. So if you pull a Blitz, it's weak to lightning, it would do 300, so then you would knock out the Pikarom in return.
Okay.
Yeah, just you slowly attach to the Sigilif, and you either force them to KO it, they have to tag bolt it on the bench.
Right, so basically what you're saying the strategy would be leave it in the active attach and see if they have the Guzma?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also gotta be honest, I wouldn't be scared to kill it in the active. Yeah. I wouldn't be scared to full blitz it for 300, lose it, and get another Pikarom on the bench or promote something else. Cool, you took 3 prizes. Try to win the game and kill the second one.
Yep.
And I'm thinking if your opponent had to bench a Lele, or even if you just tag bolt something else, you can just tag bolt the Sigilif and take another 1 to 2 prizes off the bench. And in that case, yeah, they're taking the 3. But if you didn't go overboard on items, they're probably... I don't think they're returning the KO. Yeah. So you can just sweep through the game at that point.
You can also knock it out with and sacrifice like a 0 aura, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I would do that for sure. You can just get 3 energies on 0 aura.
And make the 8 prize card game.
Plus, you could just always draw your Silent Lab. That's always a
That's
possibility.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay.
Does not play answer to that though.
Okay, so we kind of proofed Pika Rum from Sigalith there. Let's see, fighting decks. So Buzzwole, Lucario, Landorus, Zygarde, Baby Buzz. Anything you want to talk about fighting deck? Otto, why is it good or bad? Pick one or talk about all of them and lump together.
Sure. There's like 2 that are like really popular. I think like Buzzrock, and then there's like Lucario Sash with either Lycanroc or no Lycanroc, but just like Octillery. I think the Sash one has a better Pikarom matchup, but I don't know. The matchups have been kind of iffy versus other decks too. Like if you get blowered by Zoroark, then they can just KO you in that turn, and you don't really have a good response. And you can like trade back and forth with Zoroark, so I don't even think it's like favored versus Zoroark. But the Buzzrock is like pretty aggressive. I don't know. Both of those decks just lose to Stoice, so
yeah.
Because you can Tina ping the Sashes off, and then pretty much over after that.
Charlie, fighting decks. Any of them or all of them?
I'd try them, but I want to stick to 1 prizers because if you're benching any Lele's, you are so susceptible to just losing to Pikarom. Like, if you're going for Buzzwole, like, if you're playing Buzzwole GX deck, cool, they're going to full blitz with an Electro Power, maybe 2, or a Fury Belt or something, and kill your Buzzwole GX. Okay, now I got B-Strings, let's go, knock them out, take 3 prize cards, like, okay, draw, I'll get 3 more energies on a thing, Electro Powers, Tag Bolt, knock out that Lele, game's over. Like... Or they could start with a Tag Bolt, not attack you, and they skip your B-Strings. Like, there's no way you're ever beating your Buzzwole's like really ever gonna consistently beat Pikarom of Buzzwole GX. Zorro Lucario has a chance, but also is a deck that has to bench Lele's, and then you're gonna be susceptible to Silent Lab. And the last ones, or the 1 prize ones, which I think are the only chance of beating Pikarom.
Okay. I want to bring something up that I think you'll agree with, Charlie. So, I think people have kind of a too simple of an idea going into Toronto with just a fighting type deck and thinking they are going in favored versus Pikarom. Because in testing, even before I added the Flash Energies, I was still bopping Buzzrocks with Pikarom. And then the Flash Energies just made it even better for me. Would you agree that fighting decks versus a no Flash Energy Pikarom are not like hugely favored for the fighting decks?
Not even close to
they
favored.
might not even be
I've
favored.
always lived with no Flash Energy because I don't want to elixir into Flash Energies.
Right.
But like, I'm fine against it. My goal is win the game in 2 turns. You can't take 6 prizes in 2 turns as Buzzwole. So if you're gonna put 3 GXs on the board, I'm winning in 2 turns.
Okay. Rukan, any rebuttals with what Charlie said, or any of your own ideas about fighting decks?
I mean, I don't just believe that Focus Sash Lucario loses to Pikachu Zekrom just because it's GX deck, but I think that's a moot point. I wouldn't play the GX fighting decks because of their Archie Stoice matchup. I think Buzzgarb and the new Hitmonchan Wobbuffet deck are pretty good. I think Buzzgarb gets a lot better because Delinquent got banned, right? It's the one fighting variant that doesn't really have a draw engine, so back at Dallas it was really, really vulnerable to Delinquent. And if you look at the stats, it was like it wasn't losing to Zoroark decks, I would assume, because of Delinquent. So with that gone, I think Buzzgarb gets a lot better against Zoroark.
Are you talking Buzzwole GX Garbotoxin or the Buzzgarb Shrine?
Buzz.
Okay.
Buzzgarb Shrine. Yeah. And then I just like the Hitmonchan Wobbuffet deck because I think Ability Lock, just Wobbuffet's such a strong card in our format, just against Archie Stoice, against Zoroark, and being a single prize fighting type deck is pretty good against Pikachu Zekrom too. I'm not sure I like the lists I've seen floating around. They're probably just early lists. I feel like the deck could probably benefit from some Trash-a-Lanch in there, but who am I to say? Definitely Buzzgarb Shrine and Hitmonchan are the 2 fighting decks that I would look at, and I wouldn't bother with any of the GX ones.
Yeah. Can I bring one more up real quick?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
Medicham destroys Pikarom and probably loses to everything else, but I tested it. It destroys Pikarom, and it's not close.
Do you know
Medicham
which?
doesn't hit for weakness, right?
The Medicham's attack does not. Meditite's attack does. So
Oh.
you play the.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so what set are all these things from?
You play the Tool Surge
Primal
card,
Clash.
you can play Focus Sash, and you can play Hustle Belt. And when it hit you, your Focus Sash, you Hustle Belt, and you knock Pikarom to one turn.
Okay,
Oh
so
my.
if you want to go 9-0 against only Pikarom, message Charlie.
Take it from the 9-0 Lost March guy.
Yeah. Yeah, on the Hitmonchan Wob, I actually was working on that for about a week or two. I have a list that is very minimal, like pretty much no text Pokemon-wise, so you just have your best odds on starting Wobbuffet. So if you go second, you're still locking them out of Shamans and whatnot. But it feels too fragile for a regionals for me. Maybe a regionals the size of Toronto, where it's a little less intimidating, but even then, with the smaller size of attendance, you might be facing even better players since it's such a more consolidated room.
Yeah.
The draw engine on that deck sucks.
Yeah, it's like Karina, and that's it. You got Karina and
A
supporters.
little off topic. Does anyone think 6-3s are getting in?
Wait, what?
Does anyone
6-3s.
think 6-3s will make day 2? If the numbers stick the same at like.
Have we passed 275? What are we at right now?
We're like 260.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I think 6-3s could bubble.
And 6-3s made it in Australia like 2017 or whatever when they had 350.
Okay.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
Okay, so maybe something like Hitmonchan where I'm saying it's a little more fragile. Maybe you don't need to perform to the standards that we're kind of holding to our larger regionals. But we'll have to see how many people show up on the day of and what the records look like for that. Will, lastly for the fighting decks, anything that hasn't been talked about yet?
As for things that haven't been talked about, not really. Donphan feels like just a worse Hitmonchan, Hitmonchan.
Yep.
So I think
Which
Hitmonchan's.
Which one though? The sturdy
Oh,
down?
no, the spinning turn.
The one that
Donphan.
has won tournaments in the past.
Yeah.
So I feel like Hitmonchan's probably just better. Donphan. If you want to beat Zoroark and Zekrom, you could probably play Hitmonchan. I haven't tested the deck personally, but I would assume you're fighting deck and you could probably get there. As for Lucario, I think Sash is pretty good.
Well, that's cool.
And I'm a big fan of Pikarom in Standard, so I know that Lucario is an issue for Pikarom in Standard. And if you can couple Enhanced Hammers or Fabas or whatever, and not everyone is playing Charlie's variant of Pikarom, I'm sure that Lucario beats Pikarom pretty favorably. So.
I do a lot
But then
of
you just lose to
Blastoise.
Blastoise. You just cannot beat Blastoise.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I'm not in enough on this. Do most Lucario decks play Focus Sash?
Yes, everyone.
Okay, I do not beat that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right,
Sash
so
is
yeah.
really
So-
good for Speaker.
No, you play a Faba and a Laser, and then your G's.
Dude, I should play Laser. It's
Yeah,
better
you
than
should.
Electric Power.
Yeah, play a Laser. Okay, so we're going to move over to the community questions. We actually got a lot of good ones this time around. For anyone who doesn't know that's watching, for the recent meta discussions, I've been posting a question in the Facebook group Hey Fonte, asking if anyone has questions for myself and the guests on the meta discussion about the upcoming regionals. So our first question is, what is the best way to build Pikarom and Expanded, which we already did go over, but this person brought up Electric and Lycia as possible cards. They said they think the Elixir version is better, but curious to see if anyone thinks otherwise. So has anyone tried Electric, heard about Electric in it, think that's viable?
Yeah, I've tried the
I've
electric.
thought about it.
It's pretty bad.
Okay.
If you get Towering Splash, you just lose. So.
Okay,
The
cool.
Tower Splash destroys you.
So that was actually from Xander Bennett. He also asked, excuse me, does Seismitoad Zoroark survive in a metagame without Lusamine? Does it morph back into the Laser Bank Crushing Hammer version? So does anyone think that Seismitoad Zoroark or a Seismitoad without Zoroark deck could survive with the Laser Bank kind of strategy?
There's still 0 chance of beating Pikarom.
I don't think Zoro Toad Control as a deck is very bad against the meta. Like Lusamine hurts and Pikarom definitely hurts, but if you aren't very concerned about Pikarom, I think Toad Zoroark is fine if you build it a little bit differently to get around the Lusamine ban. As for Crushing Hammers and Lasers, that was a variant of Toad that I considered playing to Dallas 2 years ago, and I liked it. It ended up getting out before we could play it, so we didn't want to continue playing it. But I think if you want to play Toad and you don't want to exactly just straight up lose to Pikarom, then that's probably a better way to play it than the control version.
Actually, thinking about it again, you can play Toad and probably build it to beat Pikarom, but you're going to have to pick between Pikarom and Zoroark.
Yeah, and item lock is just very strong, so...
Yeah, I don't like getting item locked with this list.
Okay, next question we're going to go with, can Night March have a comeback in the meta? Will?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Vespiquen right now, and Night March is also something that I started testing. I think it's really good. You can trade efficiently against decks if you can manage your GXs on your board. You have to watch out for Oricorio, of course, and I think that's something Vespiquen can do a little better with Machokes and whatnot setting up. But I think Night March is good. I think Vespiquen's good. The Battle Compressor decks as a whole just seem solid. One prizers. The thing that I think Vespiquen has over Night March is you can consistently parallel your bench, but Night March you can rely on Marshadow to one-shot Pikarom and stuff like that. So I think both decks are very good.
Cool. Glad to hear that we have Night March coming back as a viable archetype. Okay, this one is for Rukan. Does Malamar have a spot in the meta, especially with Latios, and Double Dragon?
Okay, first of all, that Latios deck is completely fake, fake news.
Yeah.
It's no bueno.
No.
Not at all. Okay.
I believe I called the ladder of bad Pikarom and Latios decks YouTube meta today on Twitter.
Yeah, remember that card called Foul Play? It's pretty good right now.
Yeah. So I'm testing other Malamar variants, of course. Like, none of them beat Archie Stoice, and maybe I'll play Malamar because I'm like super comfortable with Malamar expanded, but I'm still gonna be going in knowing I'm gonna lose to every single Archie Stoice I run into, right? It's definitely not a deck I would recommend at all. But if you can dodge the Archie Stoice, I think you're pretty good. I've been testing like very well against Pikarom, pretty 50-50 against Zoroark because a lot of the Zoroark lists, no, they're not teching for Malamar. Why would they do that? So it's okay, but you just can't beat Archie Stoice. I just can't recommend it on that basis.
Cool. And just making sure nobody in here likes Latios, right?
No chance.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun, but yeah.
Okay, this is a good one, and it goes with the Night March question. Will people tech against bees, and should people tech against bees? We'll also add Night March in, so we'll just say Oricorio or Karen. Otto.
I don't know. It depends. It's like definitely not going to occupy one of the top 4 slots anyways. And if you have bigger fish to fry with if your deck beats like the top 4 and you're teching against Vespiquen and Night March, then go for it. You'll probably win the tournament. But
yeah.
So I don't know. I would just worry about the other decks probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't. I've played a little bit of bees. I feel like it's been power crept. Like, how old are these cards?
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Bees lost more too. People are forgetting Bees lost the Maxi engine, so they can't get Gallade or Marowak, and I think that makes the deck a lot worse. Because if you could Maxi's Gallade, you'd destroy Pikarom, and the deck would be really good.
Yeah.
What the deck got was it got the Emolga, which I've been testing.
That's true. It did get Emolga, but
explain the Emolga engine. I'm curious.
Okay, so the Emolga engine, you just replace your eggs with it, and it means that you can start a free retreater like 40% of your games. So then you can like do your Shaman, draw a bunch of cards, DCE it, put it in the active, Sky Return it, and then you can get an extra setup turn, and you get to bounce your 2-prizer off the bench, and you get an extra 30 to 60 chip damage in. So that's pretty good. But like it's just so hard to hit 240, and sometimes even 210 is a problem for the deck, and I just don't like that. It feels like you're a deck that just has to chip away with 2-hit KOs with single prizers, and I feel like that strategy is a little fragile against Pikachu Zekrom because that's just so fast. If like I just feel like I lose if I don't hit the 240 like once. I can do like a 2-hit KO, and then I feel like I have to get a 1-hit KO, and that's just really hard. And then Zoroark has Acerola, and it's not very comfortable trying to always stretch for 210 3 times.
Okay, cool. What decks that were previously good in Expanded have dropped down the ladder a bit? So we talked about Zoroark Toad. Is there anything else that has dropped down, Charlie?
Everything that got hit by the bans, which means, of course, Exodia, Zorro Toad, yeah. I think Vespiquen drops off because of the Maxie's ban mostly, and you lose that whole engine because now you have no chance against Toad anymore, or item lock of any sorts because you can't Marowak. And anything that takes a bad Pikarom matchup, which is most of the format, to be honest.
Okay.
Takes a bit of a hit.
Sounds good.
Cradilly.
Cradilly.
Oh,
yeah, Sceptile Vileplume took a hit from Lucamine as well.
Yeah, that's
I think Groudon too.
Yeah.
No, Groudon can beat Pikarom pretty good, actually, I feel like.
Yeah.
You have Wobs. If you start Groudon, though, you lose. But if you start Wob, you've got a genuine chance against him.
So does Archie's play Eevee Snorlax tag team? Does anyone say yes?
I've been testing it. It's like I've been testing a couple different things because I actually don't like the Kingdra in there anymore.
Okay.
So I've been trying Wishy-Washy and I've been trying Snorlax. I think Snorlax might be bad just with all the fighting attackers that are gonna show up, and if you start the Snorlax, you just like it really hurts.
Yep.
But it's like really good versus like Zoroark, so I don't know.
Okay.
I like Snorlax for sure. I think it's really good against Zoroark. But I think a better alternative is Onix. You can play a Faba in your Archie's list if you're worried about Flash Energy. You draw through your entire deck pretty much turn 1 anyways, so your Faba is usually going to be available to you. And then the Onix, just a 1-prizer that you can smack Zoroarks and Zoroarks and Pikazex left and right.
Yeah, in theory, the Onix sounds better versus Zoroark than it does versus Pikazek, because my problem versus Pikazek isn't usually I need something to one-shot it, which obviously that would be nice, but it's that they just tag bolted me and my Blastoise went down with that, and now I have to find an Archie's this turn. Any other thoughts on that?
I haven't played enough Archie's Choice.
Yeah, same here.
I guess if you expect Zoropod, maybe you want Snorlax, because you can. I mean, it's just a good card, but I wouldn't play it.
Okay, cool. Let's look down the community questions. Okay, I think I hit all the ones I wanted to talk about. So, lastly, Zorogarb seems like it has the best matchup spread in the meta. It's one of the best decks, definitely tier 1 in my opinion. What are new cards that we might see popping in Zorogarb, either from the new set or just changing because of the meta? Will?
I think some of the new cards that you should expect to see in Zorogarb in particular, to beat these new Pikazek decks is Iris. Something that if they go up ahead on prizes, you can kind of fill the gap between the 210 cap that you have with Ritus beating and the 240 that you need for Pikazek. So what Iris says is for each prize card your opponent has taken, your attack 210 more damage to the active. So that's a way to fill the gap. Hypnotoxic Laser is another one to do it. If you want to foul play with a Choice Band, copy Tag Bolt, you can do 200, then Choice Band 230, and the Laser 240. I think Laser is better than Plus Power because it breaks Sash.
Absolutely.
But you could also play Plus Power if you really wanted to.
Yeah, and if you go check out my article on flipsidegaming.com, I pretty much mirror everything that Will says there. And I also have a Zorogarb list with those texts included in it. Anything that Will left out about Zorogarb?
I like Iris. I haven't played it. I have not played the game of Zorogarb.
Okay.
I don't like Iris, but I think, you know, Will already mentioned like foul play Zoroark. I think you just, as long as you can go like single prize focus, like slightly more single prize focus with Zoroark, that alone just already improves the Pikarom matchup a lot, and then you improve your other matchups a lot more than Iris would.
I personally also don't like Iris, by the way. It's just one of the cards that you could play if you really wanted to. I think playing a 2-shot game.
Card too, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You have to wait till either like 2 prizes and a Hypno Toxic Laser, or 3 prizes, and I think by then you've probably lost.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you're guard blocking with your deck, you're not drawing cards when you're playing Iris, so you basically have to have, if you're assuming you're using Riot Speeding, you have to have a full bench, a choice band, a DCE, and Iris under ability lock in the same turn. So like, and then early it doesn't work. So if you like want to foul play them with the choice band, you have to have the laser. So then Iris doesn't exactly work if they haven't taken a prize. So I personally don't like Iris, but it is a card that you could play.
Okay, cool. Do we go with 2 Trash Lynch and 1 Toxin, or 2 Toxin and 1 Trash Lynch?
I don't like Trash Lynch that much.
Yeah, no Trash Lynch.
No Trash Lynch?
I really like Trash Lynch, but I do not think playing 2 of them is correct.
Okay.
I just have a hard time setting it up. Like, usually they have like 1 Psychic Energy in the deck, right?
Yeah.
1 to 2. Yeah, it varies.
Yeah. That's my only issue with it. I don't, like, I tried playing some Zorgarb, it's just, I don't get my Trash Lynch out that often.
Yeah, when I get it out, it's like the damage is underwhelming too.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Trash Lynch, but mostly because I'm staring at 26 items in Pikarom.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the biggest reason why it's hard to conserve items with the deck. But
It's
most
also
are less item heavy.
the Trash Lynch is also kind of changed over time. Like if we go to Anaheim, decks like Rayquaza and things popped up that are just going through their entire deck and they're putting items in their discard. And I know I played Zorro in Anaheim and I took advantage of something like that. I think I hit 6 Rayquazas on the day, and the games that I weren't Marshouted out of the game, I would just kind of hit them with a Zoroark, they'd knock me out, and then I would switch up with Foul Play or Trash Lynch, and then Stretcher, do it again. And then I would just do that. But now, and especially with if we go to Dallas and you take Wailord lists that are attempting to do 8 energies on turn 1, they burn through their whole deck, dumping tons of items. Trash Lynch once again is good, but as we move on, I think Trash Lynch is starting to, you can play around it more because people know that it's in the deck and they can play differently, or decks overall have just adapted to not playing as many items.
Okay.
So.
Bringing up Rayquaza, I do want to mention that Rayquaza also got some new tools with Tapu Koko Prism and Shaman Prism. Is there any reason to play Rayquaza over Pikarom?
Nope.
I think Ray can race Pikarom pretty well. The only problem is Tag Bolt. If they can actually set up the 6 energies before you have won the game as Rayquaza, then you could probably lose to that pretty quickly. But Rayquaza also, it's kind of glass cannon in a way.
Mhm.
If you don't hit your Ho-Oh flips, you're kind of pressured to hit 240 on turn 2. Or like whatever the game is looking, you need to kill the Pikarom before they Tag Bolt, otherwise you're going to lose. So I think the deck as a whole is good at rushing Pikarom, but if you can't establish that, then you're going to lose.
Ho has 170 HP, right?
160.
160.
160? Okay, yeah, you lose. Stupid. If you hit your Ho-Oh flips, you're giving them prizes.
I think the matchup spread for Ray is also just worse.
Then
Archie's
Pikarom,
can
yeah.
hit the numbers so easily.
I mean, Archie, like, the Shaman's like the argument that it might improve the Archie's mashup, right?
The Shaman Prism.
Yeah. But, like,
I don't know if that's enough
I
because
mean, you gotta play,
Right.
you gotta play your best against Archies anyways.
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
And we still have 1 prizes like Volcano Prism Star. So.
Yeah. Well, we covered a lot here, so with the outro, I'm going to ask, if I told you top 8 of Toronto was going to be made up of 5 different decks, what would those decks be, and why can they perform well over 14 rounds of a new unknown meta? We'll start with Otto, and also any shoutouts that you have.
What was the question again? What 5 decks would I expect? there to
Yeah,
be?
so if I told you that there were going to be 5 different decks in top 8, what would they be? And why do you think they can make it through 14 rounds of a tournament?
I think it'll be Pika Zekrom.
Mhm.
That deck can for sure finesse its way into, not finesse, it can just sack its way in the top 8.
Yeah.
I think there'll definitely be a Zorro Garb. The matchups can be really good if you're not playing against Pika Zekrom, and I think you can probably work your way out of that one if you try hard enough. An Archie's, one Lucario Sash deck, and then the last one, maybe like an Ultra Necrozma deck. I don't know.
Something weird for the 5th
Yeah,
deck.
something that just has to like hit the right matchup to like get its way in there.
Okay. Charlie, 5 decks for top 8?
Mm-hmm. So, Pikarom first, Zorgarb, I'd say some sort of aggressive Zoroark deck, which probably includes something fighting. And then a pure fighting deck, which would either be Lucario Sash or Baby Buzzwole with just a straight Baby Buzzwole 1-prize deck. And some sort of lock deck. I don't know what form that would take. It could be Vileplume, something else, Toad, anything, heavy Silent Labs on something, but something that has like a wacky way to beat Pikarom or similar decks can easily do well.
Okay, cool. Ruken?
So I'm gonna go Zorgarb and Archeostois for my first 2 picks because I think those decks are still really, really strong. I'm going to deliberately leave Pikarom off this list because I think when you look at Dallas, there's just so many fighting decks. It's just such a popular archetype. Like you're more likely to run into a fighting deck than like a Zoroark deck or an Archeostois deck. So I think that bothers me.
Okay.
Let's just say Buzzgarb for my fighting pick right now. I don't really play fighting decks, but just on paper that seems good to me. Some sort of control deck will be my number 4. I know like they lost Lusamine, but when I look at the list people are coming up with, a lot of them are like super, super vulnerable to control. So I could see something just squeezing in by dodging the Pikarom matchups. Just depends on how much Pikarom there is. And then for my last pick, let's say Vespiquen, because like it's got a good Archeostois matchup. Zorgarb losing Delinquent helps it a lot, and you can just try to do the 1-prize game against Pikarom. So, and then you have like pretty damn good. You have a pretty good fighting matchup usually, so seems reasonable to me.
Okay, great. And lastly, Will, 5 decks. You don't have to go too in depth if all 5 are ones that our other guests have mentioned.
Okay. I think I'm gonna agree with Ruken here. If a lot of Pika ROM hate shows up, I think it's possible it doesn't cut. But I think Zorgarb is such a good deck all around that I think Zorgarb will cut. Archie's I think is very good. I think Archie's will cut. Vespiquen, I like Vespiquen, so I think that will cut. And I think it's a very good deck right now. It's kind of being overlooked. I think a control deck like Shock Lock or something could be good if people aren't expecting it. And that's 4, so we'll go Lucario. If you hit enough Pika ROMs or if you hit enough good matchups, I think that deck could get there.
All right, great. And that was a lot, so we'll do shout-outs now. We couldn't tie it all in. So, Otto, go ahead, shout-outs, and then we'll go Charlie, Ruken, Will.
Sure. Shout out to all of my testing partners. Shout out to Flicker Frames, best store in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Charlie?
Shout out to all the people I've talked with and the literal 2 people I've done any testing with since I haven't tested in a while. And also shout out to Top Cut Comics, good store. Check out their website, topcutcomics.com. You can use promo code TCC Team10 for 10% off your full order.
Cool. Ruken?
Shout out to Poke Beach. I'm gonna do 2 data analysis articles. One for Dallas, which already came out, and then one for Toronto after we get the data for that. Shout out to the PokeStats TCG team. We're getting together and building some pretty cool stuff these days. And shout out to all the people that talk to me about meta stuff. You guys are awesome.
Great. And Will?
Shout out to the DMV group, Chad's PC. Shout out to Team Katron. Shout out to the PokeStats gang. Shout out to my main testing partner, Justin Bokari. And shout out to the Muskrat from NYC in New Jersey. And that's about it.
Cool. Well, thank you all for coming on the channel. We went a little long, but I think we got some good information talked about there. Be sure to check out flipsidegaming.com for free weekly articles that I write, and also use code CELIO, all caps, for 10% off of your next order, $10 or more. Subscribe if you enjoyed and want to see videos like this in the future, and I'll see you next time here on CELIO's Network.